Hi everyone, this is I am Sagar Shah and I am in Patna reporting for Chessbase India at the National Premier 2017. This position that you see in front of you was reached in the 5th round between Aravindh Chithambaram and Swapnil Dhopade. White is clearly pressing in this position, and this is what I saw before I left home today to catch my flight to Patna. I was not sure whether Aravindh would be able to win this position because Swapnil, after all, is a very staunch defender. But one thing is for sure, he faces a very difficult task, and against a resourceful player like Aravindh, it's going to be quite difficult to hold this. So when I reached Patna, there was a guy who came to pick me up in the taxi, and then he told me that, did you look at the game between Aravindh and Swapnil? I was like, yes, I saw it before I left home, but now I do not have internet, so I don't know what happened. He said, oh, it was a fantastic finish. Aravindh sacrificed his rook and then he queened his pawns. And I was like, wow, I mean, I need to see this game. So I went home and came to my room and I opened the game, and this is what we will discuss right now. It's white to play. We will go through this endgame. It looks very interesting. First of all, black is threatening to penetrate with his rook, so Aravindh stops it with king d3. The king comes to f7, rook a8, king g7, and black has a very simple plan. He's just shuffling his king between g7 and f7 and asking white what is he going to do. And here Aravindh comes up with his plan. Rook d6, it's a nice move, attacking the e6 pawn, king f7, and now a5. I think this is a very nice idea because now he's threatening to win a pawn with a into b6, and b into a5 would be met with rook a6, and I consider this position to be very difficult for black overall, because if you play something like rook b7, the king comes in to c5 and then to d6 or c6. So I don't think that black could hold this. So Swapnil tried to remain solid. He played rook b7, and he asked Aravindh that, look, my pawn here prevents your king from coming in here. The pawn over here prevents the king from coming to d5. So how are you going to actually win this game? It's a very logical question. Well, first thing is to get your king to the queen side. So king c4, king e7, king b4, and now over here I think white can already start with rook c6, thinking of some penetration, but Aravindh wastes some time with king a3, king b4, and rook d4. This was a key moment in the game, and I think Swapnil missed his opportunity here. He should have played rook to d8. This activates the rook. Of course, the pawn endgame over here is a dead draw, and if you move your rook, then the black rook penetrates inside, and this looks like a drawish position. For example, I was just looking at this variation here. Rook d4 check, king c3, you take on f4, rook takes b6, you take on h4, and this endgame white doesn't have too many chances to win. But Swapnil, I think, already quite tired with his defensive task here, played rook b7. He decided to keep the passive position, and Aravindh struck the right plan. He played rook d3 and put his rook to g3, attacking the pawn on g7. This is g6. This is very important because if you bring your rook, say, to g7 now, then I can play rook c3. This is again a nice move because I'm threatening rook c8, and if you play a move like king d8, then I can take and rook c6, and if you play king d7, over here, then I can again take on b6 and play rook a3 and finally get in. Once my rook gets in on a8 and you have this uncoordinated forces, it's going to be all over. So instead of bringing his rook to g7, Swapnil played king f7 defending g6, and now Aravindh was able to go to c3, get into c8. So by means of bringing his rook back, attacking g6, he made his path clear for the rook. And now I guess you might be thinking about the thing which my friend at the in Patna told me about the rook sacrifice. Where is it going to happen? Well, check. And here Swapnil played king g7. If he played a move like, say, king f7, then I could play rook a8 anyway, and you are in some sort of a zugzwang, because if you go king g7 now, then it's what happens in the game. And if you go king e7 at this point, sorry, after rook a8, I have a feeling that rook h8 is very strong. So in the game, after rook c8 check, black played king g7, but now the king is too far, and anyway it will be pushed to g7 at some point. So it was not a mistake by Swapnil, but the end is very beautiful now. Rook a8, and after king f7, you ask yourself, how am I going to break through here? And you sacrifice your rook. Rook takes a7. That's how you end the game. Rook into a7, ab6. It's just losing. Yeah, the 2 pawns with the king are too strong. You know, b7, rook here, king c6. King is coming to c7. So king e8, check, king b6. Well, you can't do anything. The pawn is queening, and then you sacrifice your rook. I have another pawn. A beautiful endgame technique by Aravindh, and it just shows that when you have two advantages in the position over here, when the endgame began, exactly somewhere around this point, when you have two advantages, one is the much more active rook, and the second one is the space advantage. It should be more often than not enough to convert the whole point. So in case here, if white had only one advantage, let's say more space but not as active rook as he has, I mean black rook is also active, it might have been difficult, but here both the factors together contributed to the win, and now Aravindh leads the tournament. I have a feeling that boy is really one of the favorites to win this tournament. His middle game and end game play is just so very strong.